Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 28th, 2022 meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission. The first item after calling the meeting to order is citizens' time. Is there anyone here online or in person that would like to say something about something that's not on the agenda? Any subject at all? All right, the record should show that there is no one here for citizens' time. Now, as far as the agenda goes, on item, we have two items that are being continued. The first one is item 4A, which is 98 to 108 Middlesex Turnpike, the Yard House USA Burlington Stormwater Permit. They're on the agenda for a request for a certificate of compliance. And I guess we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting, which will be May 12th, 2022. And then the next one is a continued public hearing, notice of intent, item number 8, 102R Wind Street, and that's to replace a culvert and restore wetland stream bank, DEP file number 122-666. All right, we do not, we would have to have a vote to continue number 8, but we don't have enough members present. We're expecting a fourth member present. Here tonight for the commission, we have Bill Boyven, Indra Deb, and myself, Chair Larry Cohen. We're expecting Don Bernstein to participate online within the next 5 minutes.
In person.
In person, he's going to be here?
I believe so.
Okay. All right, so we have to hold off on any votes. Let's scoot down to item 10C, other business. Anybody want to bring up something?
I would like to. I was wondering if the other members of the commission would be in favor of changing our starting time from 7 o'clock to an earlier starting time, 6 o'clock, I would propose, or even 6:30. It would allow us to, of course, end earlier. Many other committees meet at 6 o'clock, some meet even earlier than that. I would propose that we discuss it, and I would not want to make it happen with just a majority. I would want unanimous approval of changing the time, the starting time. Because if there's one person that doesn't want it or can't make it, then I would withdraw that proposal. So I would like to start earlier, just for the mere sake of ending earlier.
Okay, is there any reason other than you just want to end earlier, or is that?
I am usually in bed by 9 o'clock, so.
So what he's saying is the commission's getting older and we have to accommodate. Pretty soon we'll go to lunchtime meetings, is that what you're saying?
We'll get to happy hour pricing pretty soon for our
Oh, I see.
early bird, that's what I was thinking, yes, we need the early bird.
Early bird meetings.
Good
Well,
try.
the Board of Selectmen did that, probably started doing that maybe a couple of years ago, I think. They've been meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay. Indra, you want to comment?
I don't have any problem. I'm flexible.
How does 6:30 sound?
6:30 sounds better, yeah.
6:30? Well, I would be in favor of 6:30 as well.
Okay. So we'll have to wait for, what I'm proposing is when Dawn gets here and if he agrees that we have a quorum, that we would vote to change to 6:30 if all 7 members ultimately say yes.
Okay.
So,
All right.
thank you.
All right. Other business also is we have a town meeting coming up. Do we have some things relative to conservation at all, on town meeting at all?
Not really. There is a somewhat related zoning article, which would,
John's on. Don Bernstein. Okay.
Okay, so I take back about roll calls.
Roll
You
call.
need to do roll calls for everything. You should do a roll call of attendance right now, actually.
Okay, so we have to do an official roll call for attendance. Commissioner Don Bernstein.
Here.
Commissioner Indra Deb.
Here,
Commissioner Bill Boyven.
Here.
Commissioner Jennifer O'Riordan will be marked absent. Commissioner Ed Loturco will be marked absent. And Commissioner Kent Moffett will be marked absent. And for the record, The chair, Larry Cohen, is present. Administrator, John Keely.
Present.
Assistant Administrator, Eileen Coleman.
Present.
Okay. All right, so we can go forward. Let's go.
Do you want to finish when we already started the discussion of starting early? Now that we have a quorum?
Yeah, we can, you want
Yeah.
to explain it to Don as well?
Don, until you signed in, we didn't have a quorum, so we were discussing a proposal of mine that we start the meetings earlier. There are other commissions that start at 6 o'clock, the select board starts at 6 o'clock. I was proposing 6 or 6:30, but I would not make that happen unless there was a unanimous decision. You know, if any one person can't make it, then I would withdraw my proposal. So the three of us said that 6:30 so far seems like an acceptable starting time. How would you feel about that?
I actually have to be late to the meeting on every other week. I've got stuff going on that it stops at 7 p.m., so that's why I've been late.
Okay, so that would not work for you. Okay,
Well, I would have to be late. I mean, I'd be more than a half hour late as opposed to 5 minutes late. So I wouldn't be able to do it and not be late.
right, okay. All right, thank you. Well, I would take that as a negative vote. You know, I don't want somebody to have to be late all the time, because that would interfere with having a quorum. If it was like tonight, we wouldn't be able to start until, you know, you arrived 35 minutes late instead of 5 minutes late, so I withdraw my request. Thank you for hearing me out.
Okay, so let's move on. We have a request to continue the public hearing for 102R Wynn Street, item number 8. Could I have a motion to continue the hearing until May 12th, 2022?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Okay, Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
yes,
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes by a vote of 400. 102R Wynn Street hearing is continued until May 12th, 2022. Next, we'll move back up to approval of minutes, April 14th, 2022. Do we have any reasons for discussing it at this point?
I made a few minor editorial comments, and they have been received, and so that's all I had.
Applied
right.
already.
Then could I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 14th, 2022?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Don, how do you vote?
I want to ask a question.
Yes.
Can I vote because I was not, but I did watch the video.
Yeah, you can watch, you can vote on minutes.
I can vote, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes,
And Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes by a vote of 400. The minutes of April 14, 2022 is approved. Next, we'll skip down to item 4B. This is a request for a certificate of compliance for 3 McIntyre Drive, DEP file number 122-599.
Good evening.
Good evening. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Sanjay Patel.
Okay, and you live at?
I'm living at 3 McIntyre Drive, Burlington.
Right, I just needed you to say that, okay. All right, okay, so, John or Eileen, do you have any comments for us?
I don't. I just wanted to briefly share, I'm not sure we sent it out, but we did get a little narrative just describing some of the changes that were made subsequent to the plan being approved. The retaining wall was added to the rear yard. Front walk and walk to the side entrance were added, which made a slight increase, 850 extra square feet of impervious. Oh, no, sorry, they were also included in the stormwater analysis. So the stormwater infiltration accounts for those. And the additional 160 square feet was not, wouldn't necessarily be taken by the infiltration, system, but that's a pretty tiny amount. The stone trench was slightly different, and the infiltration system was actually larger than expected. At some point along the line, I can't remember if it was in the order, but we did talk about adding some trees, so they in fact planted 3 trees rather than 2, and this was the as-built plan in case anybody has any questions.
Okay, let's see if there's any discussion for a moment. Indra, anything? Bill?
No comments.
Okay. Dawn? Any discussion on 3 McIntyre Drive?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Apparently there was water breaking out on the backyard,
There is.
but it goes on to stone.
Yes, that was part of the reason I think that they built the retaining wall. They were just having trouble with so much water coming off the properties behind. So did the retaining wall help with the
Yeah.
wetness?
Yeah.
And yeah, they have a pretty substantial stone bed in front of where the water comes out, so it's okay.
So you don't think anything more needs to be done?
I don't think so. I mean, they'll come back to us, if he wants to do anything else in his yard, Sanjay knows he'll give us a call.
Sure.
Okay. And how about the trees, the status of the trees? I saw the 3 trees there.
What do you think of the trees, John? I mean,
So,
they were
I'm looking to-
okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'm looking, they weren't required in the decision, were they?
Right, I know, this was something, this has been ongoing for like about 3.5 years now. So just when minor things changed, like me and their contractor agreed that something they would do is add some additional trees.
Okay.
It wasn't
those-
actually
They
required.
weren't required in the order of conditions.
All right, okay. All right, so
Can you remind me what the bond was?
hearing that, then I think it's time for a motion.
Sorry, 5,000.
Oh,
Could I have a motion from the commission to issue the certificate of compliance for 3 McIntyre Drive, DEP file number 122-599?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, the certificate of compliance is issued.
Yeah.
Is there is there a bond?
apparently it was a $5,000 bond.
Okay, are you
Substantial
recommend?
one.
Yes, are you recommending a full release of the bond?
Yes, I would.
All right, so let's see where that goes. Could I have a motion to release the full amount of the $5,000 bond for DEP file number 122-599 under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14 and the State Wetlands Protection Act?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Wait, Dawn, how do you vote? I have to call it.
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So by a vote of 4-0, the full amount of the bond is released.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, next, we have,
I brought the lamb and the ham, just.
we have a request for a certificate of,
David,
Could you ask
David
the-
or Mary, could you mute, please?
okay. All right, let's, could I request for certificate of compliance for 49 Middlesex Turnpike, the 49 Middlesex Turnpike Realty Corporation, DEP file number 122-370. Is there someone here for that one?
Oh, where did it?
Okay, I can discuss it. So this was Ned's Towing. They got an order of conditions to do an addition to a commercial property on Middlesex Turnpike. Can't remember, many years ago, and then they never did the work. So this is a certificate of compliance, basically invalidating the order of conditions, saying no work was ever done.
Okay. All right, is there any comment from the commission? Dawn, any comment, or Indra? Bill? No?
No, no work was ever done. I think it's easy decision.
All right, could I have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for invalidating the order for DEP file number 122-370 because no work was ever done for 49 Middlesex Turnpike?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so by a vote of 4-0, the certificate of compliance for 49 Middlesex Turnpike is approved. Okay, now we'll go down to item 5A. Notice is hereby given that the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting during which time we have a request for determination of applicability filed by Sunrun Installation Services. The commission will take all information related to the proposed installation of a ground-mounted solar panels within bordering land subject to flooding. It's located at 3 September Lane. The commission will thereafter issue a determination. The application's being heard pursuant to the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. A copy of the application is available by email by writing to conservation@burlington.org. Well, good evening.
Hi, Steve Kelly from Sunrun.
All right, nice to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, do you, I guess you can talk first, so if you'd like to say, as much as you would like about what you're doing.
We're putting a ground mount solar system with 6 helical piles that have a 2-inch pipe driven into the ground with a skid steer piece of equipment, and no concrete, minimal, less than a square foot impact area. Basically no leftover, mostly compresses any soil, so there's not much of anything for runoff, or not runoff, just excavation, if you will. And we're going to dig a trench, which would probably be the most evasive, from the array to the home, which will backfill and no plus or minus materials.
Okay, great, thanks for the summary. Eileen, any comments on this one?
So the reason this is in front of you is this because almost the whole property is in the flood zone, which makes it bordering land subject to flooding. So as Steve described, it's just going to be on. You can see over here. Just if I understand this correctly, this is the way the array is set up, so that there's a helical pile here, a helical pile there, and there's 6 of those all together. The array is at the back of the garden towards the north. Unfortunately, I misunderstood it initially, but the fact is they're only 2.5 inches wide, right?
Correct.
The piles. So it's really a tiny impact in the flood zone that we're not really terribly concerned about. And he mentioned how the trench might be more impactful. That's going to be covering back the soil back up to the exact level of the surface that it was, so it isn't actually an issue for the floodplain.
So Eileen, a question, are you suggesting that it is de minimis filling?
Yes.
Do we need a separate vote to waive that, or I just make the decision that way?
I think the last time we've written it in the decision as de minimis, so I think that counts for a vote, right, John?
Okay, all right, so you've heard everything. Dawn, any further question or comment?
No, I don't have anything else.
Indra, any further question or comment?
Yeah, just one question. The piles, helical piles, how deep, how depth?
I think it depends on what they find. If they go to a certain pressure, to a certain torque,
I see, yeah.
and once they reach that torque, that's as far as they go. Somewhere in the area of 6 feet.
6 feet? Oh,
Okay,
A lot of it is the uplift. They're concerned with that as much as they are supporting it.
Because it's a sail, in a sense, it could be in
Correct.
the wind, yeah, okay.
how much it weigh?
The panels are around 3 pounds a square foot.
Okay,
They're, let's say 18, let's say 20 for argument, they're 60 pounds a panel. So they're not very heavy.
okay, Bill?
okay.
And this is a fixed, it's not tracking the sun, it doesn't move, it's just a fixed array?
Correct.
I've noticed the output of this seems to be much stronger per panel than the one on my roof, which I've had for 10 years. Has it changed that much? It looks like it's twice as powerful.
It has.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're using for panels, but it's probably 225, 250 watt per panel to 360 and above.
Right. Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I have nothing further. Is there anyone in the audience for the ground-mounted solar installation of solar panels at 3 September Lane? Okay, the record should show there's no one here in the audience or online for it. Okay, so Eileen, you have a draft negative conditional determination?
Yeah, we did put one together. So the applicant is Sunrun Solar, the property owner is Lawrence Toy at 3 September Lane. We're referencing the plot plan that I showed there a few minutes ago. The applicant proposed to construct a ground-mounted solar system with 4 rows of 7 panels on 6 helical piles, each 2.5 inches in diameter. Additionally, an 18-inch trench will run 150 feet from the array to the home. The work was located within bordering land subject to flooding. The Commission finds that the amount of BLSF fill, that's flood displacement from 6 small piers, would be de minimis and would not cause an increase, nor will it contribute incrementally to an increase in the horizontal extent and level of floodwaters during peak flows. The solar panels will be above the flood elevation, so the rest of the decision says that this is a decision only for the project as described. Anything else would require that you might have to come back again. Any demolition or excavated material should be disposed of off-site in a legal manner. I don't think you're expecting to have any, so these are mostly standard. They come with every decision. No stockpiling of soil or other materials, no tracking of sediment in front of public roadways shall be allowed, and if that happens, clean the roadway. No filling or grading of the property under this decision. And the last two are just about how representatives can come and just take a look to make sure it's looking like it's...
The only comment I have on the stockpiling is when we dig the trench,
Yep.
we'll put it off to the side. I don't necessarily consider that stockpiling, a pile
How long will that take?
as quick as
Will
possible.
it be like a day?
A
or
day.
will it- Then I don't think it's...
For the electrical inspector to come
I
along.
don't think we would consider it stockpiling if it's just a day.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that up in my mind.
Anybody disagree?
No, that's fine, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. Is there Dawn, any comment on the conditions? Indra, anything further? Bill, anything further?
No,
All right, I have nothing further. Could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination for the project as described at 3 September Lane under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 in the State Wetlands Protection Act?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
All right, Dawn, how do you vote?
yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
yes.
And the chair votes yes by a vote of 4-0-0. The ground-mounted solar for 3 September Lane is approved.
Thank you. And we'll be in touch for
Yeah.
next steps.
You'll get your official, the paperwork will be issued on the 3rd, May 3rd, so you've
Okay.
got a few days to wait, but you can get yourself together.
That's fine, terrific. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Have a good evening, sir.
Guys also.
4 places altogether.
Okay, here's 2 more for you.
Very good.
All right, next on the agenda is a request for determination. Notice is hereby given that the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting, during which time we have a request for determination of applicability filed by Susan Mangella. The commission will be taking information related to the proposed removal of trees within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands. The property is located at 5 Bruce Street in Burlington, and the commission will thereafter issue a determination. This application is being heard under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14, and a copy of the application is available by writing to conservation@burlington.org. Well, good evening.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, so why don't you introduce yourself, state where you live, which I know where you live, but state it anyway for the record. And then you can say a summary of what you're trying to do.
Susan Mangella in 5 Bruce Street, and the proposal of cutting trees down in the side backyard of 5 Bruce Street, between 5 and 7 Bruce Street.
Okay. And some of us were out there and we saw them marked with red paint and blue paint and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
but, I mean, is it stockpile, I'm sure we'll take it credit.
Is that me?
No, no.
Keith O'Regan, but I think you need to mute yourself, Mr. O'Regan.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I can't do it. I don't have
Okay,
good.
all right. All right, so Eileen and John, do you have some comments on the request to remove trees?
Sure, I can take this one. So the commission did a site walk. There were obviously quite a few trees marked of various sizes, ranging from some small yews and cherries to some very large pine tree and a very large oak tree. Excuse me, it was a maple. Some of them were obviously leaning or not in the best of health. The pine tree, we didn't really go look at, but that was certainly a very large tree, and the commission's generally been fairly liberal about the removal of large white pines near properties. The big maple, it's tough to say. There was certainly one large branch that had a large hole in it, but I'm not an arborist, so I can't really speculate on whether or not that tree is in good health, the rest of the tree. I mean, I think there were so many marked trees, it's hard to like make one blanket comment, but I think, you would need to require some plantings for the removals if you approve them.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see what comments people have. If you didn't make it out to the site, it might be difficult to say too much, but I'll call on Don. Any comments on this application to remove a number of trees?
I think if they're willing to make some plantings, I don't have a problem with them taking out those trees.
Okay. All right, Indra?
Yes, so I understand, is there 16 trees to be removed?
That sounds about right.
There was about 7 or 8 on each property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely we need additional.
Okay. Bill?
I don't have a problem with most of them. There's 2 trees in particular that I question. One is the large maple that was there. To me, that looked salvageable. It's a nice mature tree, which is an important contributor to the wetland environment there. Removing something of that size would clearly add more water to the wetland, and to it sucks up a lot of water, and it provides a lot of shade to the wetland, which is an important environmental factor. So that tree I'd be hesitant to approve cutting if the arborist can just trim it. There's 1 or 2 branches that look like it should go. The other question I had was the large pine sitting right in the wetlands. I don't know why we would be allowing cutting to be done in the wetlands. It's not really threatening a house. And then the other factor of it was he was going to cut it and let it just drop into the wetland and leave it there, which I thought was kind of strange also. So I'd like to hear more about the reasoning for just leaving it there. Is that preferred, or would it be?
Well, if it topples over, I mean, that's what would happen in nature.
Mm-hmm.
A tree like that will topple over and will just provides a lot of biomass and a lot of habitat for wildlife. As long as it's not blocking the flow of a stream or something.
Was no stream there.
So I didn't go back and look at the pine tree, so I'm not sure if it's in the wetlands or really close, but white pines are very shallow-rooted trees, and when they grow in a wetland, they're especially shallow-rooted, so a large tree like that is going to topple at some point because of its shallow root system.
It clearly was wet where it
Yeah.
was, so. Okay, so it is less stable than it appears, you're saying?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was out there as well, and the majority of trees were in degraded condition. The 2 trees that I was wondering about, whether an arborist would say they could be trimmed and saved. One was the elm tree. It kind of tends to fork up, but I didn't think the fork was that bad. And the other one was the maple tree that has the one branch that looks like it's not in the best of shape. Other than that, I had no issue with the request, other than, is the best way, or Eileen, is the best way to approve tree replacement to wait until it's down and have you folks, as our staff, determine up to so many trees should be replaced in terms of what's needed for the health of the wetland and so forth? Or should we approve a certain number of trees tonight?
I would say you approve a certain number, then give us the leeway to pick the location of the actual plantings and the species.
Or less if appropriate?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay, and so how many trees up to would you suggest we approve? Half a dozen?
Yeah, but spread between the two properties, right.
Okay. And you will make the final determination as to location and the final count, is what you're suggesting? Do we need to approve a tree of a certain maturity, like at a certain diameter, caliper or something?
I wouldn't do that. From what I understand, right now, it's really hard to get trees from nurseries anyway. It's really difficult, so I wouldn't limit it like
Okay.
that.
All right. Okay, so, do you have any comment, Susan, on what we've been discussing so far?
No, I mean, everything makes sense, except we had a lot of trees in that area, whether they rotted out or wind damage and stuff, so there has been, you know, for me, the big one in the picture, that's the closest one to my property. On the other side, we had one that just kind of, I know it didn't look terribly diseased or anything, but on the other side of the property, I had a tree just this winter fall right over, break the fence, the shed, things like that, so.
Yeah, I don't think the maple tree is in danger of falling over. Did you get that sense, John?
So, I mean, I think we should write the condition that it should be evaluated. So there's no indication that Marquis actually evaluated these, an actual arborist evaluated these. So they do have an arborist. So if an arborist determines that those trees are diseased or unsafe, then they could be removed as well.
How does that sound?
That sounds, yeah.
Okay? I mean, we're not educated to that extent that we're
Right.
going to make that determination for you.
Of course, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a reasonable approach.
I can add stuff over top.
All right, let me ask, is there anyone in the audience for 5 Bruce Street that would like to make a comment at all? Guess not. Okay. All right, so if that's the case, we have a draft decision to look at?
We do. I'll read it out just because I'm giving Susan John's copy.
Okay.
This, I think we need to, as I'm going through, we might need to tweak some of the wording, just because we weren't sure where it was going to land with everybody.
Okay.
Okay, so we were saying it's for trees at 5 Bruce Street. It's actually 5 and 7 Bruce Street, and we were looking at the Marquee Tree Service proposal. It looked like they were proposing to cut 8 trees on 5 Bruce Street and 8 trees on 7 Bruce Street in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. We made no finding as to the exact boundaries of the wetland resource area, but some of the trees were as close as 10 feet from the wetland. You're voting to issue a negative determination in this case for work only as outlined above, as we described in this meeting. So the applicant may proceed with some number of tree removals. Are we saying all 15, or do I need to add a little something there to say, may proceed with tree removals pending something from the arborist?
Well,
Pending-
how many total trees are there?
I think it was 16, actually, in total.
So why don't we say we're essentially authorizing 15 tree removals, and 1 we are asking for an opinion? Isn't that what I think I heard?
The arborist from Marquis is going to determine the health of the tree.
Yeah,
Of the large
can that
maple.
1 maple tree be saved? We know that there's 1 branch that looks a little bit,
Yeah.
has a hole in it, but it
No, but
might last you a very, very long time if it can be saved, but we'll let them determine it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just add a couple of extra words there, but pending an opinion from Marquis, something. Removal of any other trees beyond those permitted by this decision will require additional approval from the Commission or administrator, and may require submission of a written assessment by a certified arborist that they pose a hazard or are in significant decline. So I'll add that about the pose a hazard up above there where the dots are. For tree trimmings or removals that are not feasible to do by hand, machinery such as a bucket truck or train shall be located in the driveway or existing lawn areas, not in the wetlands.
No, right.
The stumps of trees shall not be removed without additional approval from the Commission or administrator. The applicant is encouraged to leave snags, which is a portion of the trunk where feasible for wildlife habitat. And this is the other part where we'll just need a discussion. Applicant shall plant some number of
6.
trees on site.
6.
6 altogether, that's it. So 3 on each? That's what we're saying?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. 6 native trees, 3 on 5 and 3 on 7 as mitigation for the removed trees. The locations of the trees to be planted shall be determined in consultation with the administrator. Specific species of trees to be planted shall be approved by the administrator. Do we want to leave the part about the saplings being, it says shall be no
4 feet
smaller
high.
than 4 feet high. That's one of our typical ones.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's not hard to find.
Yeah, that's, I think that's where you came with, up with
Yeah.
that one before.
That's fine.
Don't dump any sediment, lawn clippings, or landscaping in the vegetated wetlands. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides should not be used within 100 feet of the wetlands. And the last couple of conditions are just saying that we have permission to go on site just to check on the proceedings.
Of course.
So 3 on each.
So Eileen,
Yep.
on the replanting of trees, we said, okay, 4 feet high, which is fine. Do we need to specify whether they are suitable for wetland habitat? Because some of them are gonna be,
Well, it does say that the species and the location shall be approved by the administrator.
got it, okay,
So I
that's
think
fine.
that covers what you're
That
saying.
covers it.
Yeah? Okay.
Okay.
6 native trees in that case. Okay, I'll fix this and the way you said.
And I can play with around tomorrow.
Yeah. Do we have anything else?
No, we're all set, right?
Yes. I think
Okay,
so.
okay. All right, then, if no one has anything further to say, could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, for the removal of trees and some replanting of trees at 5 and 7 Bruce Street?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Again, that's unanimous, 400. The project at 5 Bruce Street and 7 Bruce Street is approved.
Thank you.
All right, thank you
Very
very much. Good to
That is,
see you.
just so you know, that's not your official one. This was our draft that we discussed, but
You're
we'll
gonna
send.
email it?
We'll
Yeah.
send you the proper one next week, the final.
Okay, thank you.
What was I, oh yeah. Then it's to John.
Okay, so there's 2 signatures here.
Okay.
Okay, so that one takes care of that. The next item is a request for an extension. This is for 36 Mill Street, Beverly Van Nostrand, and it's Burlington Wetland Bylaw Permit. Hi, why don't you come up? It's been a while since we've seen you.
Yes, it has.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Well, that's good, okay. You're still living there?
Mm-hmm.
You are?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you probably want to, for the record, the person taking the notes, state your name and state where you live, okay?
Beverly Van Nostrand, 36 Mill Street, Burlington.
Okay. All right, I remember the lovely property that you have. It was very nice. And I guess no work has been done, is that the case?
No. At this point, it's with the engineers at Eversource.
I see, so you're waiting for a response for them?
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear. Okay,
I had what I thought was a successful meeting. I had the manager of the right-of-way on the property.
right,
Kristen was there. I had an attorney. I was recommended that I get one because this is a long time. And I thought we agreed on everything.
I see.
It's, the only thing that's holding it up now that I know of is the water retention pond. So we moved that to the horseshoe driveway area. And then she got back, Eversource got back to me and said that they thought that I agreed I'd move it off of the right-of-way. Well, I can't do that. It has to be next to the driveway that goes in, so that's where I am with it.
Oh, dear. Huh. So this must be pretty frustrating.
You know, I'm too old to get frustrated.
All right,
I'm plowing along, and I'm hoping for a successful end to everything.
well, today's your lucky day, because the Conservation Commission of Burlington is gonna give you another 3 years.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we gotta vote on it
You won't
first.
need 3 years.
Yes.
All right, could I have a motion to grant a 3-year extension for the project at 36 Mill Street, under the Burlington Wetland Bylaw?
So moved.
Second.
Second,
All right, Don, how do you vote?
yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. By a vote of 400, the project at 36 Mill Street permit is extended for another 3 years.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Good luck.
Good to see you. Have you got a contractor waiting in the wings?
A lot of things have changed. I've got a granddaughter who wants to build a house there now. And they have a contractor that, it's like family. So that's where I am with that.
Are you still moving, or are you gonna stay there?
I might stay. I have a great grandson.
Well, that's
Well, now you have a double
That's-
reason to stay.
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking about the middle lot for me and my granddaughter.
All right,
to be in.
it sounds really lovely. That's great.
It would be great.
Yes, it would be. And having your grandchildren and great-grandchildren nearby would be even greater.
Oh, I babysit 2 days a week.
That sounds good.
He's precious.
All right. Good to see you again.
Thank you
Good
very
luck.
much.
Right plan.
Okay, so that was that one.
Did I not put the new plan?
Okay, so next item on the agenda, we have
Yeah, I can.
a continued public hearing. This one is for a notice of intent for 10 Scott Ave, lot number 2, by 10 Scott Ave LLC, Robert W. Murray, manager. It's to demolish the existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling, DEP file number 122-671. Good evening.
Good evening, Phyllis, Phyllis Etzel, representing 10 Scott Avenue LLC. Robert W. Murray, manager.
Well, it's nice to see you, Phyllis.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Okay, would you like to say anything first, if you'd like?
Well,
Or maybe your team wants to say something?
Not really. I see Mary Trudeau, our wetland scientist, is here, and David Romero, our engineer. Since we last met, we finally did get a plan into you
Right.
to show the relocated limit of lawn and where we propose to plant the 2 trees we talked about during the site visit. And I think you've had a chance to look at that.
Right.
Eileen very kindly did send us a copy of the proposed conditions, but I think before we get to that, you may have other questions that Mary and David may want to address.
Right. Okay, Eileen or John, do you have any update for us on this one?
No more than Phyllis just said. John and Mary actually had an exchange, I think last week, a few days ago, about, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but about the little swale that's back there. Because John was wondering whether we should be considering it jurisdictional, and Mary didn't think it was wetland, but in the end, we decided it actually is jurisdictional because it's upstream of wetland, right? Was that what you decided? in the end?
So, I mean, that's what I told Mary, so, I mean, I hadn't heard back from Mary on an opinion.
This is Mary Trudeau for the record. I received John's email questioning whether the little swale along that property line would be jurisdictional under your local wetlands bylaw. And I think I'm gonna have to beg to differ with you on this one, that I think that it's an upland swale and it has an indirect connection via hydrology to the down gradient wetland system, but the surface flow doesn't appear to connect directly. It looks like it runs down along the property line, drops into the ground, and I'm sure that it ends up as flow in that wetland system, but it doesn't do it on the surface. There's no wetlands vegetation, there's no hydric soil in that area. And in my mind, if that's a wetland, what is not a wetland in Burlington?
So my question wasn't whether it was a wetland, it's whether it's a stream.
I think
Because
that it-
Burlington protects streams up gradient of resource areas. So, I mean, if you don't think it's a stream,
I don't think it's a stream. I
Okay,
think
but-
that it's a swale within an upland, up gradient of a wetland system, and I would not connect it to the wetland. And that's, it's really a site-specific decision in this case that I believe that water does flow along that property line. I don't believe that it connects on the surface of the site to that down gradient wetland. I think it drops into the ground and emerges as groundwater flow.
okay, that's fine. So one of my concerns is just that area not get filled. So
Absolutely.
I had,
Again, can you show us where that swale is, please?
Yeah, it was up along this edge, if you remember.
there's a chain link fence
Well,
there.
I guess,
runs
yeah.
along a chain link
Going,
fence.
going here, going towards the wetland, that was the question. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Yeah, and it did seem to disappear for a little bit and then seemed to reappear maybe.
Okay, I mean, that's fine, and if that's the case, it's not a stream, but, I just would like to not to be filled. So, I mean, I had suggested to Eileen, we put in a condition that we put a post and require a fence along the erosion control line. And Phyllis said, well, you know, the fence should be more along the 20-foot no disturb than along the erosion control line. But if the fence could be in the back, that area near the fence, if there could be if that could be fenced off, you know, just so that area isn't touched by future homeowners.
That actually might be more amenable because it leaves you with more.
Where would you would
I
be
think
talking
he
along
means-
here?
Yes.
I have
yes.
pictures also.
I think that is kind of what he means, yeah.
Along the rear?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We can discuss that a little bit more if we get to the decision. But just to finish up, you would ask if I had any other opinions. They did change the limit of work here, where I'm showing on the cursor, to kind of jog it out a little bit so as to save a few trees, and they're proposing to add a few trees. So, I mean, it's a pretty tight lot. I mean, in terms of adding more trees, so I think they did what they could, and I'm okay with this. They're infiltrating stormwater. Nothing is happening there at the moment in terms of stormwater treatment.
So I do have a question about that new jog there. So there's a large oak tree that I noticed I was looking at Street View. Is that within that area that you are saving now? Do you know? It's near.
I believe it is. I think that's
Okay.
why we made the job.
No.
Yeah, it's in that little triangular piece.
It is.
John.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay,
That's
excellent. Okay,
Is that towards the front
That one.
corner on,
Oh, yes, we're saving that.
okay.
yeah,
at the front corner on the left?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
Now-
near the utility pole.
That's why we moved.
Excellent. Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions from the commission. Dawn, anything further on this one?
Yeah, just looking at the plan, it's apparent that the site of the house, the proposed construction is uphill, upland from all of the wetlands, they're lower elevation wise. Is in the order of conditions, are we having some stipulation that recommends or requires something to protect runoff during the construction process to keep runoff from going into the wetlands that under the, materials and stuff that are being used to construct?
Yes, we do, and it's also in the, I'm sorry, is that okay for me to answer? It's also on the plan, Don, where it says, you see where it says limit of lawn? That also says 12-inch wattles. So they'll be putting erosion controls up before construction starts.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Indra?
Yeah, for the record, I watched the video, the last meeting.
Okay.
And I just want to make it clear to David is that 100% of the runoff would be infiltrated?
Yeah, the whole roof is all going to go to the underground infiltration, yeah. And the driveway is gonna go to a stone trench along the side, so that means all the runoff will be caught and infiltrated, yes.
Thank you.
Is that what you were asking? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Bill?
I have nothing.
Is there enough information so that the driveway will be constructed so that the majority of it pitches into the 12-inch stone trench? Is there enough information on the plan, or does anything have to be added?
If, yeah, I could add a note if you'd like to say grade to drain to trench, just to make sure that they do it, but Murray Hills
would be
does
great.
do that.
That would be great, thank you.
Okay, sure, I can do that.
And David, we actually were wondering, John and I were just discussing that about the location of the stone trench. I
Yeah,
think we're okay with it in the end, but that in general, the slope is going down that way, so.
It is, yeah. I guess we could put it on the other side. I just wouldn't want it to get in the way of the walkway and the front door.
Right.
Yeah,
That's the only reason I put it on the other side.
Right.
but the way you're proposing, the driveway will pitch towards that trench, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Okay, he's gonna put a note on it to make sure it gets constructed that way. Are the locations of the trees, we're gonna have a few trees planted, and have the number and locations, have they been determined yet?
Well, they're proposing 2 in this approximate location. I mean, I think
2 where?
they're the 2 bed things in, do
Right.
you want me to make it bigger again? Sorry. They're in that patch that you identified, Larry,
Right,
approximately in there, and, you know, they can move by a few feet, I'm sure,
okay,
in that general area.
all right, and we don't, 2 is more than sufficient, and we didn't, seem to remember, we didn't seem to think more than that was needed.
I think 2 is okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, I don't have anything further. Is there anybody who would like to comment about the project at 10 Scott Ave? Anyone in the audience at all? No, I don't think so. Okay, is there any other comment from anyone?
Nope.
Then we have some draft decisions. Why don't we review and then take a vote, please?
Yep, just getting those ready now. Okay, we'll start with the bylaw. Again, just according to what we all said, we might need to tweak the part about the fence when I get to it. So this is for the project as described at 10 Scott Avenue, demolition of an existing single-family residence driveway, removal of shrubs, construction of a new single-family dwelling, attached garage, walkway, deck, driveway, and associated grading and utilities, planting of 2 native trees within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. Then we went through the filing history and the plan references, which the plan was last revised today. We last received it today. These are the usual wetland values, areas subject to protection. The proposed work was within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. Closest point of the new dwelling was approximately 50 feet from the wetland, which makes it about 20 feet closer than the existing. The project is exempt from the Mass Stormwater Management Regulations. They are infiltrating the rooftop fully to an infiltrator and the driveway to a stone infiltration trench. The permit under the Burlington Wetland Bylaw may also serve as a permit under the Erosion and Sedimentation Control Bylaw. Everything else here is pretty standard, except that I should have changed this. We're not requiring hay bales. They had said 12-inch wattles, and that will be okay, but we will require them to be backed by a silt fence. So I'll just change that thing about the hay bales on the bylaw. And proposing a bond in the amount of $3,500. And if I could switch over to the other one, that still works, does it? Yes, it does. So the is as described in the bylaw, last revised today. Everybody in this room is very familiar with most of these conditions, so I'll just jump through a few.
Yeah.
So all of those first ones up to pre-construction conditions are standard. Under pre-construction conditions, this will call us when they're ready to get going, and we'll make sure the DEP sign is up there, the order is understood by whoever's the contractor on site. She will have provided evidence that it's been recorded at the registry of deeds and that the bond has been paid. At that time, we will look at the erosion controls, which will be installed by hand at the location on the reference plan. And the barrier shall include but not be limited to straw, wattles, 12-inch minimum, and sediment filter fabric fence. Materials should not be stockpiled within 40 feet of the wetlands. No dewatering unless we receive a plan. Keep the area swept and clean. We reserve the right to require additional erosion controls. No additional grading beyond what is shown on the approved plan shall be permitted without returning to the commission. Keep the wetland clean. Nothing shall be dumped into the wetlands, and anything that falls in shall be removed. The rest of these are standard. We talk about pesticides, herbicides, fungicides shall not be used within 100 feet of the wetlands, and that's perpetual condition. Rooftop runoff shall be infiltrated on site using 2 storm tech devices. An infiltration trench shall be installed along the driveway, and this shall be named in perpetuity, and that'll be noted in the certificate of compliance. The fence shall be installed along the erosion control line as shown on the reference plan. So we're going to change that. How do we want that to read? We were talking about 20 feet, and then we were talking about something in front of the trench along the, the western side?
Yeah, that's the west.
No, I think it's the western side.
Westerly side, northwest.
So will it be, a fence shall be installed at the 20-foot line except, and also along the western, and also 20 feet from the trench to the western edge, something like that?
Something like that.
Do you want to say so as to protect the
Swale.
the swale? But that way the intent is more clear.
Right.
On the 20-foot.
So what did Larry say? 20-foot and then
With the intent of protecting the swale at the back of the property.
20-foot line and along the western edge. Okay,
Yeah, the
we'll
western
fix
edge.
it so that it makes sense.
That way it's clear what we're trying to do here. Yeah,
To protect the swale.
right.
Okay, I'll make that look nicer tomorrow, or John will, one of us will, to protect the swale.
Even though it's non-jurisdictional, Mary.
That'll be right here.
I think it should be protected, though. I think it should functional. I just don't think it's a wetland.
Right, I agree, I
And
agree.
then let the stone wall protect the rest.
Oh, sorry, shall I?
Yeah.
Can we stop can we maybe stop the fence at the stone wall?
That's exactly what Phyllis was suggesting. Stop the fence at the stone wall and let the
Yeah.
stone wall be the demarcation?
Yeah.
That's what she's suggesting. Do you remember the stone wall? Oh, can I just show John what you were saying?
If any of those
Said along there and across there and then. 20-foot line as far as the stone wall.
Yeah.
As far as the stone wall. And then something along the western edge or like some feet in
Yeah.
front of the swale, I'll just say. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. New fence shall not have gates. Thank you very much. Okay. The area behind the fence shall be left as naturally vegetated and shall not be maintained as lawn or landscaped areas. This demarcation shall be maintained in perpetuity. Approximately 8 healthy trees shall be removed, and removal of any other trees will require additional. 2 native trees shall be planted in the lawn area. Removal of the shed and debris behind the limit of work shall be done by hand or by machinery only from the lawn. No machinery shall be operated beyond the erosion control barrier. And the rest is just a description of how to go about requesting a certificate of compliance.
Okay, Phyllis, are you all set with this?
I'm all set.
Okay. All right, anything from the commission more? No. All set? All right. Then, let's move along. Therefore, could I have a motion to close the hearing for 10 Scott Ave DEP file number 122-671.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. DEP number 122-671, the hearing is closed. Could I have a motion to adopt the findings under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for DEP file number 122-671?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. By a vote of 400, the findings are adopted. Could I have a motion to adopt the order of conditions under both Burlington Bylaw Article 14 and the State Wetlands Protection Act for DEP file number 122-671?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. By a vote of 400, the order of conditions is adopted under both Burlington Bylaw Article 14 and the State Wetlands Protection Act. And finally, could I have a motion to request some surety be posted under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 in the amount of $3,500 for DEP file number 122-671?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Nope.
Okay, Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
And Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So $3,500 bond is requested for performance surety. We're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Have a
very
good
much.
night.
Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Have a good night now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's only four of us.
Okay, next, on the agenda. We're going to skip down to item number 9. It's a continued public hearing, proposed revisions to stormwater management bylaw. It's General Bylaw, Article 14, Section 6. This is a bylaw that, some changes that we are proposing. It was originally scheduled for this town meeting, but we felt it needed more work on the detailed language. And so in order to accomplish that, it was pulled from the town meeting warrant, and we are continuing with the hearing on the stormwater management bylaw. So, Eileen, do you want to lead to sort of bring us from where we were to what we're doing, or do you want me to summarize?
Well, it's been a while, so I might have to remind myself. So we had gone through a couple of different iterations of how we wanted this to change. We're all in agreement that we wanted to tighten it up in that we want to require engineered plans for stormwater management. There's still some discussion, as I think we have to come to a final agreement on where we are with thresholds. What else? Sorry, we'd like to change the rainfall data against which the plans are designed so that it's much stricter. Why don't I just
Want me
pull up
to,
the proposed thresholds? Yeah, I wasn't entirely
The
ready.
rainfall stuff is, everybody's changing that. That'll be in the new stormwater, DEP stormwater handbook as well, so.
So perhaps let me try a stab at a summary here and see if it helps things here. Currently we have three levels of applicability. It's those things that qualify for a standard permit, where there's engineered plans, O&M and maintenance, and so forth. There's the abbreviated permit, and then there's no permit, even though violations would still apply if there was a violation of the bylaw and stuff was running into the street. Even if it's the smallest possible project, it would still come under enforcement through the bylaw. So for the the basis for actually changing things is that we have seen a number of situations where that a full permit with an engineered plan and so forth, we don't have the benefit of having an engineered plan. We don't have the benefit of a performance bond. And most of the homeowner-type projects are falling under this, what we now have as an abbreviated permit, which is, for the most part, a standard set of conditions. The problem comes in is when there is a problem, either water is breaking out or a homeowner is claiming that their neighbor is having far more water now because of all the changes made on their property, the offending property, if you will, does not have the benefit of an engineered plan. Okay? And so, since there is no engineered stamped plan, there is no professional engineer to go back to and ask a question of, because that person doesn't exist. And in some cases, for an abbreviated permit, the sketch, for example, that the homeowner would present to us, they unilaterally will change the design of what they're doing. They'll change the shape or the configuration or whatever without the benefit of a professional saying this is still using good design practice. And so we end up with even worse situation that sometimes it's not even what they said they were going to do. So the intent is to capture more of these projects for the benefit of not only the neighbors, but for the benefit of the homeowner, so that they have some assurance that it's being designed properly, and the town and the neighbors of that property have the assurance that if there is a problem, there's somebody to go back to. Does that kind of summarize where we are?
That's good.
Okay.
We would also like we'd like to be able to get a bond for those smaller projects too, so that we
Right.
have something of a stick.
Now, the thinking of where we're going goes like this. Currently, right now, we have something called the standard permit, and this, as it stands right now, it really applies to larger projects, and very few homeowner projects ever get what is called a standard permit. You know, obviously, correct me if I fall off the cliff here and I don't get it right.
No, there's only a few.
Yeah, there's only a few. So everything we're talking about really, so what we're proposing at this point is to not change that situation where a standard permit will be for the larger projects. Now the issue becomes, how do we change the abbreviated permit so that it offers greater protection for handling stormwater properly? It seems to me that what we're looking at is almost two levels of abbreviated permit. Those abbreviated projects that are sufficiently small, they're unlikely to cause a problem, and therefore we're not asking for a stamp plan. They might still have a performance bond. I don't know about that. And those projects which are of sufficient size and disturbance and additional impervious surface under the abbreviated heading, that they would require a stamped plan, an as-built if there's any changes, and a performance surety to ensure compliance in case there is a problem. Does that summarize your understanding so far?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So the only, if you agree with that philosophy, the only thing left to do is to decide if we're okay with the threshold for an abbreviated permit as to what the threshold is for the de minimis not requiring an engineered plan, because it's unlikely to cause a problem, and what's the threshold above which we would require an engineered plan. For the abbreviated permit, I think the direction we're going in is to not go with a hearing for that. That we would go with an abbreviated, we would go with an engineered plan, and the performance surety, but not require the homeowner to come in for every project for a hearing.
I don't think we had full agreement on that. I think Bill was still, had some concerns.
Well, I don't know.
But maybe he's no longer does.
I mean,
Well, I was somewhat satisfied with the idea that abutters would be notified. That was the main reason for having a hearing, in my opinion, was that abutters have to have a chance to know what's going to happen before it happens, so they can express their concerns in advance of it already being done, which is where we run into a lot of our problems. So, as long as they have that ability to get the information in advance and question it to authorities or planners or whatever, then I think that's fine without a hearing.
Okay, that's, I had pulled up the summary of possible proposed changes, so I know it's hard for you to see there unless you can see Bill's, but we were going to include a butter notification. No matter what we decide for thresholds, we can have a butter notification be across the board if you want, or just for ones of a certain size.
I like it for abbreviated as well. I mean, the de minimis stuff, obviously, no, but if it's, more than 5,000 square feet and that's gonna require an abbreviated permit, why not notify the abutters?
right,
Yeah.
right. I think
So
it's,
I think on our standard permit, we might have a requirement for abutters within 300 feet.
Is it 300?
I think it might be. I think we can check that, but I think for an abbreviated permit, we should just have direct abutters.
right.
I think that's
think
the
that makes
wording
more
we
sense.
had in there, but we
Yeah.
can tweak it. We just said the people who touch it.
Right.
Yeah, they would be the ones that would be only affected on a
Right.
smaller project.
Yeah.
So what we have as a draft, as I understood it, is we have a standard permit would be maintained at 20,000 square feet or greater of land disturbance,
I had a question on that.
okay?
Okay,
Wouldn't that also say, per our discussions, and for all tear downs, regardless of square footage disturbance?
No,
No,
we
we said
weren't.
no on that?
We weren't,
And I think it should actually say greater than 20,000, not 20,000 and greater, because there's a lot of 20,000 square foot lots, and people are gonna come in and say, we're disturbing 19,990. So it's just easier to say greater than, rather than.
right. Well, and then what we have is, we have this proposed impervious surface threshold bill totaling 10% of the lot size, additional area.
well, those are two alternatives.
Right,
We could go with either one.
I see. So you're not talking about both?
Well, I think it'll get complicated if we make it both, but we were just tossing out different ways of looking at the thresholds. So I
Okay,
mean,
so
either
that's-
stick with the
that's-
square feet across the board, or we could make it, you trigger one when you hit 10%, and you trigger the other when you hit 5%.
Was that 10% additional impervious? Or if you had a house and you added a garage and that put the entire over 10%?
I thought it was
What were we
additional
talking about?
impervious.
Just additional, that's a lot. You're adding 2,000 square feet of additional impervious on a
That's
20,000
what we
square foot
intended.
lot.
The addition,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's additional, okay. So it's because it says totaling 10,000, that's what made it not clear in the wording there.
It does, and one thing I kind of like about this idea, which was actually John's, so I have to give him credit for that, is that on some of the smaller lots where it's really only 10,000 square feet, you can hit the 5,000, you hit the 5%, we can catch some of those more easily. For things like a big addition, where I'm concerned about it because it's a smaller lot,
So 5%
5%.
would be 500 square feet.
yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
I don't mind if it's square footage, it doesn't really matter, just, we were giving you alternatives, ways of thinking about it.
So if we only go with the land disturbance as the threshold, how do we handle?
Oh, no, sorry, it could be both. No, I confused you. I meant square footage or percentage for impervious. I just meant we would pick one or the other.
I'm confused now.
I know,
Oh,
I'm
she's
sorry.
talking, it's either this or this,
Yes,
not this or this.
yes.
What Bill?
It's either the 900 square feet or the 10%.
Yes,
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes.
Not this or this. It's gonna be 20,000 square foot or 10% lot size would both require either
Yes.
one would require the
Exactly.
the standard
Will you
permit.
correct me if I'm saying
But
it wrong?
just take
Because we
this
don't
wording
want-
and use that instead.
What's he saying, this or this?
So if,
I think I was, by saying it's not one or the other, I think he thought I meant, like, not both of them, but it is both of them. Whereas I just meant not this or, you know what I mean? I'm confusing everybody.
I understand now,
Okay,
so I suggest you don't say any more about
I
that.
won't.
So,
I'm done.
so if there were less than 20,000 square feet of disturbance, you could still require a standard permit if there was an increase of 10%
Yes,
impervious
Of
area.
additional impervious surface.
Right.
So, and 10% of additional would be if someone was adding 2,000 square feet, which is quite a bit.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, so
Which
that's,
is why we could go back to this one instead.
which
If-
one?
if they're
Use the
adding-
900 square feet or more as the,
if they're adding enough to
Instead of
total
the
10% of the lot, right? That's what we had said.
but
Sounds 10% is very high.
but on a small lot, it's not.
No, for
You know, so that's where the thing on a
5%.
10,000 square foot lot, the 10% makes sense. But on a 20,000 square foot lot, the 10% is enormous. It's 2,000 square feet of additional impervious area before you require a standard permit.
So it would be 20,000 square feet of land disturbance in that case.
Well, that's always in there. But I'm saying, if
Right.
you're disturbing less than 20,000 square feet, to require a standard permit, you have to have an additional 2,000 square feet of impervious area before you reach that threshold. That sounds like a lot of additional, if somebody was having 1,700 square feet of additional impervious area, they would still not need a standard permit under that
The thing
wording.
is, the problem I have is that 900 square feet, I think is too small for the standard permit.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, I think it should be more like 1,200 or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
In other words, a substantial project, because you can put on an addition and a driveway and easily add on 900 square feet.
And does it really make a difference what the lot size is? 1,200 square feet of impervious is a certain volume of water that's being
No,
added.
I would disagree. If you're saying 1,200 square feet of impervious on a tiny lot has a much greater impact than 1,200 square feet on an acre lot, because they've got plenty of room to infiltrate, it's probably not gonna be as close to the lot lines, it's not gonna run off onto other people's
So a greater
properties.
impact on abutters.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just that it's more compact, more chance of,
So it should vary by lot size, and then you'd have to go back to the percentage. It just seems to me that 2,000 square feet,
Is a lot.
it's a lot. I mean, that's the entire 100-foot width of a 100 by 200 foot
but
property.
as long as they're disturbing
20 feet
20,000
deep.
square feet, they would have to get one anyway.
Right, but we're saying if they're not disturbing 20,000 square
If they're
feet.
not disturbing 20,000
On a
square
home
feet.
lot, they would never disturb more than 20,000 square feet unless it was an unusually large lot.
2,000,
Yep.
that's a very, very large homeowner
Right,
project.
so, but
Right,
You'll never cross it.
just as an
Well-
addition.
we
Never
don't,
cross it.
okay.
So, I think that in order to accommodate different sized lots, because not all of them are half acre, a percent of the lot size probably makes the most sense. Okay? So that 10% might be a little bit too large, because if you have a 20,000 square foot lot, and 10%, that's 2,000 additional square feet, it doesn't even make sense. The chances of having a 2,000 square foot additional impervious surface are almost minimal on a half acre lot.
We're seeing them.
It's pretty, to me, it sounds very minimal. It's not a real, I don't even know if it's a realistic project.
But does it matter? Because if they're disturbing more than 20,000 square feet, they are coming in front of you anyway.
Right, but we're discussing when they don't disturb more than 20,000 square feet, what's the alternative for getting a standard permit? What other threshold would require a standard permit if they only disturb half of their property?
If they're disturbing less than 20,000 square feet, it's probably a single-family
Right,
house.
exactly. So when would a single family require
A standard
a
permit.
standard permit? If they
They're
added,
disturbing 10% of the lot.
if they're paving 10% of the lot, or,
Paving, sorry, yeah, you're right.
Right.
An additional,
I'm saying that's a huge area. That would take the entire 100-foot frontage 20-foot deep and pave the entire thing, or the side even worse. You know, you could,
It's not realistic.
it would, all that water would go into your neighbor.
It's my general opinion that you don't need to hear single-family lots projects unless they're something scary like that.
Well, here's my view is 10% sounds a little large, I would trim it back a bit. In other words, a realistic large project might be like 8% or something like that. That would be like 8 times 20,000, that'd be like 1,600 square feet. That would be a lot, that would be a large project. That would be my opinion on that. And then for the abbreviated.
A lot of, yeah, from the numbers I provided before, a lot of them are increasing in size by 2,000 square feet.
Are they really?
Yeah.
So you're saying when they tear down a split level and put in a mega mansion, you're getting that kind of increase?
In at least some of them, yes.
Yeah, sure. Driveways
Yes.
are tripling.
Yep, yep.
Obviously, the houses are tripling.
So this would capture those that didn't disturb the full 20,000 square feet.
Okay, now let's go to the abbreviated permit. I think we've hashed that one out a bit.
I would just add to that, that's what I was trying to capture by saying all tear downs. You know, we take down a little house and put in a big one, and that might capture it anyways with the 10%.
Right. And then the 5% of the lot size, that would be 1,000, so a project that is adding 1,000 square feet of impervious surfaces, newly impervious surface, would qualify for an abbreviated permit. Or the abbreviated permit would be from 5,000 to 20,000 square feet of land disturbance. So under both of those, could we talk a minute about, under both of those, which ones would require engineered plans? Right now, you have it for land disturbance, 10,000.
They both would.
No, wait a minute. From 10,000 to 20,000 would require an engineered plan. That's what the draft says now,
Oh,
okay?
really?
And then between 5,000 and 10,000, we're saying that's a
Oh.
de minimis project that doesn't require an engineered plan. Is that correct?
Right. That's
We
what
had
it
said
says.
not for 5 to 10,000 or for less than 5% total impervious coverage.
Okay, now, and what we're saying for the impervious surface threshold, 5% or greater of additional impervious surface, so that's 1,000 square feet
On a 20,000.
on a 20,000 square foot lot, or on a 10,000 square foot lot, it would be 2,500 square feet, would require an engineered plan. I think that makes sense. Doesn't that make sense?
Certainly should require an engineered plan, at least that much, yeah.
Makes sense to you now still, when you reread that? Okay.
Okay, so does anyone want to comment on what we've talked about so far? Because I have a couple of other things.
It just seems to me like the difference between the yellow columns moving to the blue columns is a significant increase in the thresholds.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah,
Oh.
we're talking 900 square feet and 500 square feet. Now we're talking
I
about
thought-
2,000 square feet and 1,000
I
square feet.
thought those were way too small, to be
Yeah,
honest
yeah.
with you, anyway. I thought those were way too small.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, if there is an engineered plan, and whether or not we're having a hearing or not, how often do we see problems with neighbors having substantial complaints if there is an engineered drainage structure?
I don't know because I don't get very many with plans.
Yeah, the only ones we do are the ones that have wetland filings
Exactly.
generally, yeah.
And if there's a water issue, we don't know if it's necessarily because of there's stormwater.
Okay,
They would still have to submit a plan in the smaller ones, it just wouldn't be certified by a professional engineer. So you still have to have some sort of a plan that, you know,
They're addressing it in some manner,
we
yeah.
would all look at and say it seems to be adequate. It's just not a certified professional engineer. Until it reaches a certain threshold. That's
Well, it wouldn't be we would all look at, it would be we look at.
they would look at it, not us.
on the abbreviated permits,
On
yes.
abbreviated permits.
Right,
And those are generally additions.
yep.
If it's that small, it's not a new house, it's just an addition, so.
Right.
Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about with you folks is about trees, okay? Right now, I think it's under 662. The wording says, tree removals should be limited to the maximum extent feasible and practicable. No trees shall be removed within the zoning setbacks without a waiver from the commission. The commission reserves the right to require replacement of trees removed. That section is in the standard stormwater permit section, 6.6. Wouldn't you want that language to apply under both a parallel language, under the abbreviated permit perhaps, as well? In other words, that language about giving some discretion to trees is only under the standard permit, which wouldn't apply at all.
In most homeowners.
Most homeowner
Yeah,
situation.
no, I think that's critical.
Where were you reading that? Where did you say it was?
662.
The part that you read, did it say tree removals should be limited to the maximum extent
Yes.
feasible? No trees shall be removed in the rear zoning setback?
Yes.
Okay, the
That's what I
commission
read.
reserves the right to require replacement of
Rear
trees
zoning.
removed.
That's not what you read.
Shall be removed within the zoning setbacks without a waiver.
So it's the rear zoning.
Well, I know, yeah, we had tweaked this a bit further, having talked with Susan Cadillac, and we all had a discussion about, it may not be.
You can't do the sides. You
because
can't get the construction of a big house
Exactly,
on the
it's
lot.
with the construction and the setbacks, it's only, 15 feet or something?
But
They may not be able to.
But I thought perhaps what we could be doing is, where a neighbor is going to, if they were here in front of us, very often, it's not necessarily about erosion controls and things like that. It's about, are you going to remove that tree? And the answer would be, yes, we're going to remove that tree. Can the tree be put back after the construction, or can it be replaced in the rear setback? In other words, should we, so we do reserve the right to require replacement of trees, right? Is what it's saying.
That's what we're, at the moment, still saying, yes.
What I would like to see, I would like to, and I like that language, I think it should be in both the abbreviated permit and the full permit. Right now, I think it only reads the full permit. Okay, that's the first item.
Look at that, yep.
So there should be parallel language for the abbreviated permit, because that gives us some discretion there to require some trees.
It also said to the start, to the maximum amount feasible and practicable. It can't be both, it's one or the other. It's either the maximum amount feasible, which is absolutely, imaginable, or practicable. They're two different things. I think practicable is the one that should be in there.
I think this is a spot where you're definitely going to have pushback at town meeting or anywhere else, because people don't like us telling them what they can do with their trees if it's not a wetland filing.
But we're not telling them. What we're saying is that if they say it's not practicable because of construction, let's say the house is going there and the trees exist too close to the house, they have to be removed. It's as simple as that.
Practicable makes sense. But I think in terms of just protecting that rear setback, you get some pushback perhaps, but I think it's defensible, I really do.
I don't really have an issue with the rear setback. I think that's not,
Well,
I think it's a good compromise. It's just the whole.
I actually think there's an additional sentence needed. I was thinking that there's a difference between telling a homeowner who is doing a project, here's what trees you can remove and here's what you can't remove, as opposed to a tear down and rebuild, which is by a developer who says their standard practice is just clear the lot. I think there's a difference between that. And I don't think homeowners are gonna terribly, I may be wrong, but I don't think they're gonna terribly object if we had language in there that says for
for
tear
tear
downs
down.
and rebuild projects, which is what we're seeing these mega mansions go up, that we say that, that any trees removed shall be on a one-to-one replacement somewhere on the lot, unless a waiver is granted, unless they apply for a waiver and a waiver is granted. In other words, what we're seeing here is projects where you have, someone buys a lot. It's not the homeowner, he's just gonna flip it. And what happens is, the first thing they do is they totally remove all the vegetation. And it's doing a lot of damage to our environment because it creates future problems with water retention and ponding and so forth. And I think we should have a more firm control through the bylaw imposed upon the builder who is doing the tear down and the rebuild, that he should not be free to just completely clear the lot, and in the interest of saving money and flipping it, that there are no trees being replaced. Now, I don't know exactly what that should be, but I think there should be a stronger requirement on a tear down rebuild, and I think we'll have less pushback on trying to do something aggressive for a homeowner-sponsored project.
I would like to see ultimately, and of course it would require a tree ordinance, that strip, the rear setback, never be allowed to be cut on anybody's property. You know, as part of, and without some special application showing reason. Now, we can't do that without a tree ordinance, but we can do it when people are doing additions to their homes. It's just an opportunity to say, when you're doing that, don't clear it. We've seen people who put an addition on the back of their house and clear cut their yard to put in a huge lawn to go with it. When it's just an addition, it's not a tear down, it's not a developer.
I think what some towns are doing is they're putting a bit more aggressive requirements on tear down and rebuilds.
No, I agree with that.
And I think that might be a place to start, is what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but it might be a place to start, that a tear down and rebuild might be a place to start, that there is a requirement, that there is an expectation that all trees will not be, that all trees can't be removed without some replanting. And it would be a place to start. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, that a homeowner could certainly do that, but I think most people who buy a house that is a tear down and rebuild would be grateful to have some trees there.
The developers think they wouldn't. That's why they clear them. They think people want the big lawns.
Well, I don't see, Susan Cadillac is here. I don't know if she wants to chime in here on being a bit more aggressive with respect to a tree replacement policy for a tear down and rebuild.
So, wait, so a tear down and rebuild, we don't have a separate category for that. We have thresholds. There's thresholds of 10,000, there's thresholds of impervious area. We don't have a separate category for tear downs and rebuilds.
I think we should. That's what I said about alternate, standard permit should be for all tear downs, even if it wasn't 20,000 square feet.
Well, that's what, we were there like 3 months ago, and we sort of backed off that, partly with Susan's input.
I'm only talking about trees, not a separate threshold category. What I'm talking about is that there's enormous benefit to both the homeowner and neighboring properties to have trees that are soaking up water. And to have a developer come in and for the sake of totally saving some expense, and he just knocks down all the trees and there's no expectation of replacing any of those trees, I think is not in the interests, the environmental interests of Burlington to have that happen, continue to happen. So that's kind of what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I think too many developers are watching HGTV and thinking that everybody wants these big mansions with the wide open spaces inside and outside. And yet comes to actually living in a community and, being nice to your neighbors and having wildlife and birds in your yard, that's what most people really enjoy, you know, so it's, you know, I'd like to get some way to make sure that trees are protected whenever it's practicable. And I think that picking one side and saying you must have one setback, and I'm saying that rather than just a rear setback, because you get corner lots and stuff where it's not clear if there's a rear setback, and it depends on how the house is facing and everything else. But if one of the setbacks had to have some extra tree protection in it, I think that would make sense and give us some protection for, you know, the trees. And if there is a reason why you can't do that because of access issues or whatever, or, you know, there's some ledge or whatever, then, you know, it has to get a waiver, or it has to be, you know, it's not practicable. You have to show that.
So for an abbreviated permit, who would issue the waiver?
Well, it would have to be staff. I mean, it doesn't come before us, or if it came to that it required a waiver, you could make it come before us, you know, for a vote without having a public hearing. I don't know.
Well, anyways, I've been thinking that there's a lot of detriment to clear cutting all trees on property, as we know.
On many levels.
And many levels. And the most immediate level is ponding and flooding on the property. And the next level is water running off onto a neighbor's property. And trees play a crucial role in absorbing enormous amounts of water.
And they are residences for so many things. And if you have it only applied, that wording about protecting trees only applied to a standard permit, and your standard permit is only for 20,000 square feet of disturbance, it would never happen on a household lot.
Well, I mean, the thing that I have heard is that.
Susan has her hand up now.
Susan, would you like to comment on this?
Hi, sorry, you had mentioned my name. I didn't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to add that, yeah, I don't think any builders would have, you know, an issue with, you know, with what Bill's talking about, maybe, you know, protecting the rear setback, because in most cases, that's still going to give you a yard, that's still going to give you, you know, that's still going to allow you enough room to build the house. So, I don't think that would be, you know, something crazy, you know, on something that a developer is building. And, you know, and I'm hearing what you're saying, Larry, too, that, you know, homeowners may not, you know, the homeowners may be a different story, but, you know, as developers, I don't see that being a big issue, because typically it's not really in the way of, you know, getting the house itself built. That's all.
So let me ask you this, how would you feel about a bylaw that distinguished for a tear down and rebuild, that there is an expectation and a requirement for any trees within the zoning allowed setbacks must be replaced unless there's a waiver granted for a tear down and rebuild? That would affect mostly developers. What would you say to that?
I think it would depend on a lot, and I think maybe there would be, you know, it might make sense to have some exclusion for some of the, you know, the build area, like the sides and the front, you know, and then maybe after a certain point, there's some, you know, replanting in the back.
So in other words,
just because
any tree removed from the side zoning setback must be either replaced after the construction in the same place or replanted in back. How does that sound? The back zoning setback.
I'm just trying to think. I think in most cases, I'm just trying to think, we've had a few homes with trees in the front that we could work around. Typically the side ones are tougher because the side setbacks are so small. But again, it's going to depend where the house sits, where the new house sits, where the trees are. So I think it would depend on the lot. Maybe there's a certain number of them. But I feel like in most cases, there's not a ton that have to come down in the area of the build. I'm just really thinking about as you get further down the lot, let's say, you're into the yard, those side setbacks might be a little bit trickier if you're trying to do a yard and trying to get around, even to get machines around the back
Yeah.
and into the yard. I feel like sometimes clearing, you
Well,
kind of need to clear the sides.
Yeah, what I'm proposing is a little bit stronger language for a tear down and rebuild as opposed to a homeowner proposed project. That's what
Right.
that's what I was trying to table, that.
Yeah.
I don't think you can protect, especially on a tear down and rebuild. The houses are so big typically, you can't protect the sides.
Right.
Half of them now have the driveway on the side and the access to the garage is from the side.
So
You know?
simply, trees removed from the side must be replanted unless a waiver is granted. And in the back zone setback for a tear down and rebuild,
In the back setback,
in the back setback.
you're saying, so you have to increase the back setback by planting more trees. Probably,
Well,
if you're not cutting anything in the rear setback, then
unless there's no trees there to begin with.
you'd have to create some.
I think what we need to do is table some language and have people actually look at the details of the language. And I mean, because in the absence of looking at specific language, it's hard to react.
Right.
So why don't we say that we will table something relative to trees or keep what we have, and then we'll circulate it and see what people are thinking. Let me see, is there anything else that anybody else, I know I wanted to bring that up. Did anybody have anything else that they wanted to talk about with regard
No,
to?
those are the main issues, the definitions of when you need the standard and the abbreviated, and the tree and the setback issue.
Okay, I'm looking through to see if there's anything else. I don't think there is. Also, no, I think that's it. That's all I had. All right, so Eileen, where do we go from here? When? If we're going for the September town meeting, when would this have to be submitted? When would we have to have the final language?
Well, I'd like to get it in sooner rather than later so that we're not bumping up against other people's, deadlines and stuff that they want to get in. Let me check the dates for that. I was just thinking about that whole, no, I guess,
It's a bylaw.
I'll tinker with the,
It's a bylaw, so it's the longer, it has to be in earlier than some of the other ones, if I remember correctly.
didn't they change it? Isn't everything 90 days now?
No,
Something's 45? Are we 45?
I think we're 90, we're 90.
90 days.
But they made everything 90, right?
No, not a general bylaw.
Right. I know the CPA wasn't 90, it was only 45.
We're general.
Not a non-bylaw related article.
Okay,
We'll check the dates.
Yeah.
all right.
Well, we should plan, if we're 90 days, that's,
I know, but we
Pretty
also
much
have to
ahead of
we have to get through the bylaw review committee as well.
right, but I'm saying that's, for September,
So
that's,
sometimes it takes some time.
that's June 1st.
I had a lot of meetings with them the last time. Let me tinker with the wording on the tree part for the next meeting. I'll send something soon. I guess I was just thinking there about the education part, because there's quite a lot of, if it's a tear down and rebuild, there are some developers out there that cut down the trees and then come to us.
Right, because
think
they're
about
not
that for
actually
education.
triggering land disturbance. You can go cut trees, and if you don't grub the lot, you haven't really disturbed ground. I mean, that's what we tell people now, you don't trigger our jurisdiction until you actually disturb earth. Cutting trees isn't really doing that.
Wow.
Right, because they're not actually triggering land disturbance. You can go cut trees, and if you don't grub the lot, you haven't really disturbed ground. I mean, that's what we tell people now, you don't trigger our jurisdiction until you actually disturb earth. Cutting trees isn't really doing that.
Wow,
what tearing them out of the ground is.
Right. That's not land disturbance.
is to me.
Well,
I mean, it's not
It's
technically.
cutting a tree down to the,
Yeah, that's true.
so I was thinking with that whole, just, there are times when I'm faced with a lot that already has just stumps.
Yeah, yeah.
And then one thing to consider, are you going to require in perpetuity that the future homeowners preserve that buffer? Because the developer can put in the 20-foot, or put in the rear lot line protection, and then somebody moves in, and they could just go cut it.
Well, I guess at least we got some improvement.
If we could, that would be nice. If we
Well,
could,
I mean, I
just-
think that's
but
why I
don't think-
kind of think a tree bylaw would be
Might be
helpful
stronger.
than doing this through a stormwater bylaw. That's
I tend to
my line
agree.
of thinking.
Yeah, it might be difficult to get a tree bylaw through.
It may be difficult to get the stormwater bylaw through if there's tree restrictions as well, so something to factor in.
Maybe, I don't know.
But somehow it's got to be captured that stormwater control is drastically affected by trees. And that just isn't reflected in a lot of these square footage and.
Right, and
Yeah.
most people
impervious
don't
area,
appreciate that.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is,
So-
again, where other education comes in.
Right.
All right, so should we simply continue the hearing until the
Yeah.
next meeting?
Yes.
And Eileen, you'll give it some thought, you'll circulate and post a draft,
Yep, yeah, I will.
is the way it will work.
Yep.
And the only other thing I was wondering about, it's kind of off topic, but it's related to dealing with stormwater, is what the planning board is talking about the 2 feet above the groundwater table.
Susan's hand is up again, but I don't know if it's still to do with stormwater.
Susan,
Sorry, that was from before,
Oh, sorry,
about that.
thank you.
So you should
I didn't
vote
want to
when you're
stop
done
you
with
if
this
you
vote to
weren't
continue
finished.
this hearing.
yeah, but I'm wondering if the planning board is proposing that the basement elevation must be 2 feet above the seasonally high groundwater.
Right.
And the alternative is to have a sump management system instead, but you have to go to the appeals board to get it, I think is the way they have it. Then, if I was a developer, I would want to avoid having to go to all the trouble of going to the appeals board, and I'll just say, I'll build a house that's gonna have a full basement. It's, my lot is already 2 feet higher, so I'll put the house on a big mound,
Yeah, that's
and
why.
it's gonna be out of character for the neighborhood. And dealing with the stormwater management, because the whole house has to be built up, would not necessarily be the preferred option for dealing with stormwater, is my point. That's the connection. The connection is to stormwater. I would think you might be better off having a sump system that keeps it dry, and you have a house that's not up on a mound, big mound. And the way you would do that is you would have instead of going to the appeals board, you would have the ability to go to do it either way. Because I think you're gonna end up with a bunch of houses way up in the air, and makes the stormwater management more difficult.
That will only have to happen if the groundwater level is high. They don't have to put a basement in. Most people will, and in that case, they will.
But around
there will
New
be
England,
some
most
mound.
people want a basement.
Right.
But if you're
I mean,
putting a big mound.
I was involved in, we were all involved in this article. It wasn't the planning board. The planning board was given this article by staff. And we did it because we've seen numerous cases, you've seen numerous cases, 3 Arnold Terrace, 16 St. Mary, where there's foundations in the water table, people have so many problems with them. Look at 3 Arnold Terrace, it's still leaking out into the road. The guy's put an infiltrator in his front yard.
It's not working.
It's not working. And you say, okay, put in a sump pump. Like, where does that water from the sump pump discharge? It frequently causes a problem for the neighbor. So you've got this giant basement sitting in a water table, and people are pumping the water out of their basement, but it's got to go somewhere.
Yep.
So it's easier not to build a McMansion in the water table. So if they have to raise the lot, then you, when you're looking at the stormwater permit, or Eileen, if it's an abbreviated permit, will make sure it's designed properly with swales along the property line so that the water doesn't, run off onto the neighbors. But it's a lot easier to deal with that surface runoff than it is like people pumping water out of their cellars 50 weeks a year.
So you don't think it's a detriment to having it, a house way up in the air? You don't think so?
If they
Well,
limit it.
I don't think that's gonna happen that often, number one. I mean.
They
way
need
up
to,
in the-
they need to limit the height
They do.
to include the mound. They say 30
Right.
foot is now the height, but if you put a 5-foot mound, how does that, or an 8-foot mound, you're now 38 feet in the air in a residential neighborhood.
Well, that's one of the problems with the article, is how the building department measures the height. And I think Susan
Susan
can
can
probably
probably
talk to that.
explain that better.
Yeah.
It's about the average around, isn't it? And
Yeah, where
the
they
whole-
measure the
yeah.
height from, but that's a drawback from the builder's perspective. Like, does that mean we can't build houses, with full third floors or whatever they build? But, I mean, I think the intent is to improve water runoff for the neighbors, not to make it worse.
And these two bylaws
It just seemed to me that
work
having
together.
a house in a neighborhood built way up on a mound might make dealing with the stormwater worse, way up in the air.
So it'll probably make it easier to do rooftop infiltration, because they can get a system in,
In the
2
mound.
feet above the water table instead
see.
of sitting right in the water table, which they have done. We've seen some recently where the builder put in an underground infiltration system thinking he was doing a good job, and it's breaking out into the neighbor's yard. You've seen it yourself, you've seen that one, because it's not sufficiently high above the water table.
Because there was no engineered plans.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, I just thought, I was wondering about that as we were talking
That's,
about
the,
stormwater.
that's one of the things we considered. It's definitely a negative that people are gonna have to build up aesthetically, but I mean, I think we can manage the runoff from the yard through swales.
So you're saying it can't, even though if it's high up in the air, it's a better system than having it too close to the water table?
Right.
Or in the water table?
In the water table.
Or maybe
That's what you're
build
saying.
some smaller houses.
Small house.
The idea.
All right, Susan, did you raise your hand again?
Just quickly. So when we have had houses in other towns with, with that kind of issue, the average grade is counted from the top of the mound. It's not from the street level or typically the previous grade. It's typically that the top of that mound counts. And even if you just go over in Billerica, you'll see there's a lot of houses with the mounds, and it really destroys a lot of times the use of the yard. So I'm wondering, how many houses we're going to see going before the ZBA. And I do wonder if it would be better, because, right now in a lot of these, there is no engineer involved. And I would think that on most lots, you would be able to get an infiltrator system. I feel like there wouldn't be a whole lot of properties where you couldn't manage it on site. But I don't know, it would be interesting to see, I guess, when that comes along. A, are people just going to go before the ZBA, or, B, are there just going to be some creative workarounds to avoid it altogether? And, if we're looking to control groundwater, I don't know if that's the best option, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you for that input. All right, well, I think at this point, back to our, what we're most responsible.
Which is this bylaw. Could I have a motion to continue the hearing on amending General Bylaw, Article 14, Section 6, the Stormwater Management Bylaw, continue the hearing until May 12th? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So the bylaw hearing for the stormwater management bylaw amendments, that hearing will be continued on May 12th. Okay? So I think that's the end of that discussion. So the next thing is, do we have any comments for the planning board at all?
I think we're gonna comment probably to them about the solar
September
array.
Lane, right.
Which
Because
one?
the solar array, because it requires a special permit,
Right,
but we'll just tell them that it was fine with us, with you.
all right, that's fine. And subcommittee and staff reports?
I don't think we have any.
All right, how about other business? We were talking about town meeting. Is there anything to discuss regarding town meeting?
Well, I was going to bring up the groundwater separation bylaw earlier when we started talking about it, but that's covered.
That's covered. The only other thing is we have the warrant article for the Community Preservation Act, and one of the four principal categories is open space enhancement and creation. That is a warrant article to ask town meeting if they will agree to allow a vote, a ballot question on the November 2022 ballot, to see if we would like to join the other 188 other communities that have opted into the Community Preservation Act program.
Sorry.
Anybody want to comment further on that at all?
No, it's just that this is not being decided by the town meeting to approve it. It's just putting it on the ballot for November. We've talked to numerous committees and boards that are even remotely related to the four program areas and have had tremendous support. One or two naysayers, but the vast majority of people that we've touched talking about this have been tremendously in favor of it. So I'm hoping it goes well at town meeting. I think it will, but we're going to have to make sure it does.
Could you comment on, a 25 words or less type, the match and the fact that there are exemptions, so anybody listening and hears it for the first time would know what it's about?
Sure. To become a CPA community, you must do two things. You must get it passed by a vote, not by any board. It's got to be a vote of the people. And you must impose a small surcharge on real estate tax. That surcharge, we're talking 1.5%, will cost about $75 per average household. That goes into a pot of money that's locally managed. Each year, the state looks at that pot and matches a percentage of it. If we were in it last year, that would have been 40% match. So you get a 40% return on the money that you put in there. Then that surcharge and the match becomes the local community preservation fund. And that is managed by a local community preservation committee and can fund programs either in one of four areas: open space preservation, recreation, affordable housing, and historical preservation. It must be those four areas.
Want to comment about low income?
The fact that it's an additional increase in the real estate tax, even though it's small, we understand there are people who are, any increase would be a challenge because of their income levels. So there are exemptions for low-income families and for seniors with moderate incomes. Those income exemption levels are defined by the Federal Housing and Urban Development Department and are adjusted annually based on annual, increase in cost of living and things of that.
And a party of two, say if you have seniors above 60 years old and in a household of two, I believe the income level is around $89,000. So if a couple had a combined income of less than $89,000 and they felt that they could not afford or objected to paying the additional real estate surcharge, which might amount to $75 to $100, for example, then all they have to do is fill in an application and they can simply waive it each year, if that's the case, if they're under that income threshold.
And the one other exemption is that the first $100,000 of property value is exempted from this surcharge.
As well.
Both for residential and for commercial, and that'll have the biggest impact on the smallest properties and the smallest businesses.
Right. So that's kind of a summary. Certainly, if anybody who's watching has a question about what all this is about, they could write to Bill, for example, and Bill would be happy to answer. Is that?
Yes, there's a website for the Community Preservation Committee in Burlington that can answer questions. So yes. You can get in touch with me. Yeah.
All right. Anyone else want to comment on this at all? That was a good summary, Bill. Thank you.
That is very good.
Thank you. I got it down now.
Okay, so we're done with other business. The next meeting will be of the commission, May 12th, and the second meeting of the month will be May 26th. What is the date of town meeting? Anybody know?
May 9th, I believe, Monday the 9th,
Monday, May 9th.
right?
Okay.
CPA most likely won't be until Wednesday because it's item 32 on the warrant, and that's probably going to spill into the second night.
Or the third.
Or the third, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big warrant.
All right. Could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Don, how do you vote on adjournment?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so by a vote of 4-0-0, this meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission is now adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.